Greetings, students, and welcome to your California Missions mini lecture. So since we have a mini lecture this week that's a little bit longer than usual, we only have two keywords videos, so not as much going on this week. So this is just some grounding, some background as we go into our California Missions unit. So to start at the very beginning of California, we need to go back a little ways, right? So before anybody from outside of the Americas showed up, this is California, right? This looks fairly familiar. It's still the outline of California, but it's got some different lines on it. So indigenous peoples have called the region known as California for thousands and thousands of years, right? As we learned last week, since before living memory. So very long time. Scholars estimate anywhere between 300,000 and 1 million people occupying the state of California prior to European contact. That's quite a few folks, right? That's a lot of people. And lots of different tribes, lots of different languages here. So we have between 80 and 100 different languages spoken simply within California, just within California, and as many as 500 individual self-governing societies with governments and religion and music and art and all of the things, right? So they're hanging out, doing their thing, living, and the Spanish show up. So what does Spanish do? Well, 1769, Spain starts to send soldiers and priests to colonize present-day California. Now, if you ask them, they were doing it to prevent the Russians, the British, the Dutch, everybody else from laying claim to California. There were also geographic advantages and lots of rumors of gold, which we'll talk about next week. So there was also this idea, remember, we got this from the Treaty of Tordesillas that we read our first week, that the Spanish were also seeking a spiritual conquest of California, right? So remember, it was gold, glory, and God. So they were looking for God, gold, and glory, but they were also looking to bring God to people, right? They wanted to convert all of these folks. So they were really trying to convert all of the Native Americans to Catholicism. And the way that they did that was using a mission system. And this was something they were very good at, and they did all over North and South America. So let's take a look at that. So when they started colonizing California, missionaries actually eventually created a network the whole way down the coast of California of 21 different missions. They ran from San Diego to Sonoma, the whole way down, centered mostly around the ports initially, and then they kind of grew out from there. Now, while the conversion to Catholicism was the primary goal, if you're going to send priests and all of those folks out there, that's what they're doing, right? They also had to build the missions, right? They had to build all these buildings and all of the agriculture and everything that goes with having a Catholic mission in California. Well, the priests weren't doing that, and the conquistadors weren't doing that. So who do we think we did it? Yeah, the folks who were already there, right? So in exchange for bringing you the word of God, all you have to do is work for us for no pay for the rest of your life. Sounds like a pretty good deal. So what did this look like? Well, not great. Not great, sadly. The mission system led to rather high death rates amongst the native populace. Primarily disease, as we've been learning, anytime these groups of people came into contact, they just did not have any kind of immunity to the disease, so it was really problematic. When you have no exposure to anything like smallpox or diphtheria, it's just going to run rampant through a community. Second problem was that when the Spanish brought in their crops and all of that to start feeding the indigenous folks, they didn't always do real well with that. Their farming methods weren't adapted to the climate. They didn't really think that they needed to provide these people with food, even though they required them to work all day so they could no longer hunt or gather in the ways they typically had. So starvation was fairly common. And then unfortunately, so was mental and physical abuse. We have many eyewitness accounts of Spanish missionaries, soldiers, priests, all kinds of people abusing baptized native Californians, assault, all kinds of things. So it's a really unpleasant history. And the result of that, unfortunately, was incredible population decline. So as we said at the beginning of the lecture, we think there were between 300,000 and 1 million people living in California. So by the end of the mission period, when the Spaniards finally left in the 1830s, that number had decreased by about half, to around 150,000. Now, obviously, we didn't have a census going on before we got there or anything, so we couldn't quite know. But let's just kind of look at some of these numbers just to get an idea of the scale. So by 1833, Spanish missionaries had baptized around 81,500 California Native Americans. And in the same amount of time, they buried over 62,000 baptized California Native Americans. So for every person they baptized, they killed one, right? It's pretty intense. It's pretty intense. So this is pretty unpleasant. I promise next week we'll take a break from the unpleasant. We'll read fun tales. So this won't be nearly as bad. But tune in for our next video. We have some keywords and concepts coming up. I also wanted to shout out to the National Museum of the American Indian. You can probably see the little logo there in the corner. They were immensely helpful in planning this unit and in getting all of the materials together. So I wanted to thank them as well. All right, I'll see you guys in the next video.